Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ty, welcome to the show, my friend. Very exciting stuff to talk about today. That team in Ohio, not the one in South Ohio, Southwest Ohio, but the one kind of in the middle of the state. They're pretty good, man. They're pretty good.
I think I'm spoiled by the way of how good they are. Apparently, they're on track to win a supporter shield. So I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. Um, well, real quick, just to talk about the elephant in the room, or like how great of a manager you guys have. It's not a surprise to anybody who follows the league closely, right? Even people who don't follow the league closely have heard the name Wilfried Nancy as of late because he was a hot name for the USMNT job. A lot of people wanted him to get a crack at that job. Are you surprised by? Not that he's a good manager, but just the success he's had since he came here. I mean, he's done it all in a short, not even full 2 seasons. It's only been a year and a half, and here you are with two major trophies.
Yeah, I would say I'm not surprised because if you take a look at his 2 years in Montreal, third place and second place respectively, just missing out on the supporter shield by 1 point in his last year. I think more so I'm surprised at the fact that it's Columbus, right? You look at 2017, Anthony Precourt wanted to move the team to Austin, Texas. Everything that this club has been through from 2017 up until 2020 when Caleb Porter won the MLS Cup in his second year, it was kind of okay, now can we keep it up? Obviously not because we missed out on the playoffs 2 years later. But the success that Nancy has had from Montreal in 21 and 22 to carry it over to Columbus in 23 and right now in 24, I think it's more so now the Columbus Crew are becoming relevant than what we were in the past. And that's why I think I'm more surprised that it's Columbus being consistent and not just Nazi because we already know how good he is.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I've been kind of wrestling with because I believe any small market team, which I don't think you would even disagree that Columbus is considered a small market with just, obviously the size, but a very good team still. Like it's market size doesn't matter with results, right? Winning is winning.
Mhm.
I kind of wrestle back and forth about the model because while they have good players, I also think that Nancy really ties it all together. So even though they have made some really good signings, I think he kind of like elevates them to a level we haven't seen before. But I do like what they've done, and I believe that any team who might not be able to get the Messis or Neymars, Ronaldo's, Beckham's, Henri's, this is what they need to do. This is the key to success, and I think a lot of teams are taking a page out of the Crew book. Shout out to the GOAT, Tim Bespachenko. Guy
Yeah.
is a mastermind with building teams. Sad that he left this past season because he's an architect at building great MLS teams. Did that in Toronto and he did it in Columbus.
Mhm.
Uh, but I think that Columbus has proven that you can be a force to be reckoned with, even in a small market. And a lot of that has to do not just with Nancy, but that number 9 you guys have, Cucho Hernandez. Now, when he was signed, I was like, hopefully he'll be pretty good. Man, he has been way better than I ever expected. And I expect him to be good, but he's on another level.
Yeah, I think nobody knew really about how good he was. Um, they knew he had some spells when he was at Watford, going out on loan and whatnot. Um, but I think when he made the move to MLS under Caleb Porter, I think Porter kind of unlocked an ability of Cucho. I think within his first year or two, I think 16 goals. But I think under Nancy, I think he's just been a whole different animal, right? He's I think tied for fourth or fifth in the Golden Boot with 13 goals in league play. So he's going to obviously add on to that now that we have games in hand and heading into the latter portion of the season. But man, Cucho Hernandez is just a different animal. I think you compare him to, I would say, I would say let's go Bouanga, right? I think Bouanga has more of the speed and the technicality to get goals whenever he wants, like in any different way. But I think Cucho has a certain ability of how he gets goals. I don't think any other 5'9" strikers can rise to get a header like he did against LAFC in the League's Cup final. But he's a different person under Nancy. Obviously, he had the suspension early on in the season imposed by the club, and then comes back. First game back, gets a red card. I asked Nancy one game after a couple weeks ago, has he learned a little bit and has he grown as a player? And he said he's definitely grown as a player, as a human. So he's kind of away from whatever the suspension was. We still don't know. We think we'll never know. Um, but I think if you're talking about one of the best nines in the league, I think Cucho Hernandez is probably the top one up there.
Yeah, in the episode I did the other day, we were talking about who is going to be in the MVP contention. And I think that if Columbus gets closer and closer to that supporter shield level, or at least finishes in the top two of the Eastern Conference, I think that he will probably, depending on how many more goals he scores and assists he scores, he's going to be right there in that conversation.
Mhm.
And that's incredible. Now, another player that I wanted to talk about as well is Diego Rossi. Diego
Mhm.
Rossi was kind of a replacement for Lucas Zelarayan last year, which I was a little. I wasn't skeptical about how good Diego Rossi was because he was really good with LAFC
Right.
throughout his years. But Lucas Zelarayan was very, very good for Columbus. And I think he was the most important piece to their 2020 MLS Cup championship, right? He
Yep.
was another great signing from Tigres. So if I'm not mistaken, it was Tigres, right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's where they signed him from. It's
Mhm.
been a while. I was shocked to see. I thought that would be a huge loss, especially because him and Cucho had a really good relationship, at least in the
Yeah.
short term they were together. But man, they did. It's like they didn't even skip a beat when they replaced Rossi or replaced him with Rossi. Were you surprised by that?
I think I I had no idea about the Zelarayan rumors until the day of the Club America game that he was going to be sold to a Saudi team. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of shed a tear on his goodbye in the press box. I kind of shed a tear. I just seeing him from when he joined Columbus in 2020 to then. I mean, he honestly put the club on his back. He put the city right back on the map as they should be. I think a lot of people wanted when it was rumored that we were signing Diego Rossi, people wanted Rossi to replicate what Lucas had and what he was doing. And the biggest pet peeve of mine was, oh, if Rossi missed a goal, oh, Zelarayan makes that, da 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 da. And I'm like, there's no way that you can take Zelarayan tendencies and put them into Diego Rossi because they're both two different players. I mean, we saw Diego Rossi in LAFC in 2019 win the Golden Boot. I think Rossi has his own capabilities, and he's proved that the latter portion of last season and obviously throughout the season right now. That yes, he can do what Lucas did, but he does it in a certain way that fits the system in which Nazi has that 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, where as opposed to Lucas is a traditional 10, kind of moving around from a left wing spot to a 7 or an 11. It didn't really fit him as much. Yes, he still produced, but as a natural 10, he likes being in the center. He likes being the maestro, the midfield maestro, as I like to call tens. But Rossi is more so of a attacking forward 10 than Lucas was. And I think with Rossi and Nanzi, it allows Rossi to have a little bit more freedom and allows him to, you know, play make at his discretion, depending on the opposition, as opposed to Lucas, where he wanted to play make no matter what. But we see oppositions have scouting reports on the Columbus Crew, and you have to adjust to each one. I think Diego Rossi adjusts more comfortably under Nancy than Lucas did.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's backtrack a little bit. It's just very exciting, just be with all the success they've had. They're,
Mhm.
just a great example of what a team can do. We talked a little bit about this before the stream. How impressive everything has been. So they win that 2023 MLS Cup with Wilfried Nancy. Montreal obviously didn't give him enough resources, but he had a lot of success. They beat LAFC, who would have repeated if they had won that game. And then the following season, their first, I think their second trophy they played for was the CONCACAF Champions Cup, if I'm not mistaken. That was the
Yeah.
second trophy that now they had a very impressive lead up to the final. I'm trying to remember what MLS teams they beat, but I know they obviously beat Monterrey and Tigres on the road, which is unheard of for an MLS team. And I believe that is a testament to Wilfried Nancy having this team always prepared to play a tough, gritty, smart team that I don't think is afraid to play anyone anywhere. Then they play Pachuca for that final, man. Diarrhea gates, what we call it, right? Everybody was sick. Now, I think that's not really fair to say, Columbus is bad or they choked or anything like that. I believe that there's context is key, right?
Yeah.
It was one game, it was away. And I do believe that these players were sick. I mean, I don't think that's a lie. I think that actually was true that they had something going on. What was your reaction to that game, or just I'm sorry to dig up,
No, no.
the past, but what was your reaction to that game?
Well, I can tell you, we only played one MLS team throughout our run, and that was the Houston Dynamo. So I think going on the road to Tigres, to Monterrey, I think that's more of a success than anything, and especially Columbus's history in CONCACAF Champions Cup, or as I still call it, CONCACAF Champions League, as it was back in the day. But that game, man, I was flabbergasted, honestly,
Yeah.
because yeah, we started off great. We had a chance within, I think, the first 20 seconds to score a goal. And then it was just downhill from there. I thought maybe it was they left the day before the game, I think the morning before, and got down there. So obviously you're also playing in Mexico. I think that one is at elevation, above, I think it's like 7,000 above sea level or something like that. So I'm thinking elevation got to them. Your body has to adjust. Normally when you play that high above sea level, I can't remember where I saw it at. Teams leave days before a game so their body can get acclimated to the elevation. But I was watching, I was like, this is not the Columbus Crew. This is not who we are. Um, Obviously, credit Solomon Rondon. He took advantage of everything that we were throwing at them, even though it wasn't our best. Um, but I still remember saying that even though we lost, it's not a failure, because for us to get to that particular point for the first time in club history is a success in itself. Now, okay, it's a one off. We can focus back on the league and control what we can control. That's a Wilfried Nancy saying. We can just control what we can control. And that's our positioning in the standings and points that we can get on the road, at home, etc. But I was with friends and we were like, this is not good at all. And actually, I'm not going to say who told me, but apparently there are 3 traces of E. coli within the team. So
Wow.
there was a sickness going around.
Diarrhea gate is
Um,
real, right? Yeah.
yeah, so there was a sickness going around. Um, but at the end of the day, credit to Pachuca. They had our number. Obviously, after we beat Tigres and Monterrey, uh, they were not going to let anything get by them, and they didn't. But I was hoping we would have gotten a second chance crack at them in the League's Cup semis. But you know, beating Philadelphia is better too.
Well, honestly, I don't think that one game defines the incredible run they had. Obviously, they played some really good teams,
Mhm.
and this is one thing that's important, Ty, and this is like I think a lot of people lose sight of this. Only one team wins a championship, like in the
Yep.
tournament. It's not like you have four champions. Like MLS, an MLS team made it to the final. They unfortunately lost, but they were the runner up. Like it wasn't like, none an MLS team, no MLS team made to the semifinals or the quarterfinals. Like they made it to the championship game and unfortunately they lost. And I believe if that game was played three times, I believe Columbus probably would have won it two out of three times. I believe that they just played that one game where they, obviously had some unfortunate events
Yeah.
and Pepto Bismol wasn't enough that day. And it just didn't go their way, man. It just didn't go their way. But even with that happening, I feel like this team didn't detract or lose focus. They've been pretty consistently good all season long, I think, especially when Cucho has played. And leading up to Leagues Cup, which was this is crazy to believe. Or hard to believe that Leagues Cup was only a month and a half after that CONCACAF Champions League final. Feels like way long, like a lot longer than
Yeah.
that. But it was only a month and a half later, and what happened, man? Columbus Crew prevail and they win Leagues Cup.
Yep.
And who do they beat, by the way? Who is that team they beat? Some team from the
Some black and gold team from the good old state of California.
yeah, Wilfried Nancy, I think he's got a habit of beating up on this guy from who is also in contention for the USMNT job
Yeah.
from the West Coast. But yeah, man, it just feels like the Columbus Crew has LAFC's number. I bet anytime you play them, you're probably not even sweating it at this point.
I funny story, I was supposed to be out in LA, um, the weekend that Columbus played LAFC. My buddy, is moving out there soon, um, so we were gonna go to the game. Little did I know that if we were gonna go to the game, we were gonna go to a 5-1 shellacking of LAFC. And then obviously, Leagues Cup final comes around. Uh, I think, I wrote an article about it too, where Ilie Sanchez after the Colorado game said, right, that Columbus are the favorites. Danny Buwanga said that there's a sense of revenge uh, happening and going to happen in this game. I was at the game. I didn't see a sense of revenge or a sense of urgency from LAFC, but I mean, I think to get outscored, what, 5-7, 10, 10-3, I think it is after these three games. Uh, yeah, I think it's safe to say there's only one black and gold team in MLS now.
Well, what's awesome too, Ty, is this feels like it's how MLS has like a problem where they try to force these rivalries. They just feel unnatural.
Yeah,
just they feel very cringe. Honestly, they're just not it.
yeah.
You know, um, I feel like this is the type of rivalry that is organically being formed. Just because even though the Crew has LAFC's number, this teams meet up so many times and they've met up in two big games at the Leagues Cup and MLS Cup in the last, just a year. And they
Mhm.
could even meet up again, possibly in the MLS Cup again. There could be a repeat of the MLS Cup final and the Leagues Cup final. So I believe that this is a rivalry forming, which is good to see, and it's organic and nobody's pushing it. I like it. I think even though Wilfried Nancy seems to have Strundelo's number, who knows? Maybe he could get a win eventually. I mean, maybe he could. Now, the shellacking you talked about, the 5-1, I actually, it's funny you say that. I actually heard that really hurt Steve's case for his USMNT chances because of how badly he was out coached at his own home stadium. I mean, that's not just it could have went either way. That was embarrassing to
Yeah.
get beat that badly 5-1. And then hearing that Wilfried Nancy, which I know you are relieved by this, but Wilfried Nancy to not even get a call from the US Soccer Federation. They
Mhm.
didn't even interview him. They didn't even make contact with him. That it's just completely baffling. They wouldn't even call him.
Yeah. I think when, Nazi's name was being thrown around, everybody's like, "No, you can't have him. You can't have him." I'll admit I was one of those people because I think what we're witnessing here in Columbus is greatness. I think I said this after Leagues Cup. I was like, cherish what we have, because this is the golden era. This is a great day in time in Columbus Crew history, and we know that it's not going to last long. But if I personally would not have wanted Nancy as the USMNT manager, only because the way that he plays his style is so intricate, and you need a lot of time to develop players into these positions, into certain roles, and give them certain directions on a day-to-day basis, like how the team practices all week, and not just for 2 weeks out every 4 months or every 6 months out of a year, because at that point in time, you're going to forget things. You're going to go back to clubs. So used to playing with your club team, you have to come back. Wait, I don't remember how to do this. And it's going to take some time. But it's shocking to hear that he didn't get a call, because for USSF to contact Jurgen Klopp after he said in his exit interview at Liverpool, "I'm done coaching. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm exhausted." Um, it's it's one of those, okay, let's go for a big name, knowing that he doesn't want to coach anymore, as opposed to, okay, let's go to an MLS coach, where the last MLS coach did okay, in my opinion, but he's also from the Columbus Crew and Greg Berhalter.
We
so,
will allow Greg Berhalter slander. We will allow that. Okay, we
so
will allow that.
he didn't do bad. He didn't do good, honestly, but I think it more so, these guys need somebody, as I said off air before we started, a team like USMNT needs a coach with a certain pedigree that knows how to instill a winning system, mentality, etc., whatever you want to call it, as opposed to somebody who's just done MLS through years and years. So that's just my take on it, but I'm happy Wilfried Nancy's still here.
It's a win for you. Yeah. Well, and also too, I think that Nazi, kind of like what you said about him being so him loving the day-to-day aspect and like really hitting home of like what you're supposed to do.
Hmm.
I think maybe he might just be a better suited club coach. Maybe the national team game really isn't for him. Not to say he'd be bad, but he just thrives better when he's really hands-on with his players and involved from the day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Um, Now, this is one of the last things I want to transition to, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Is Wilfried Nancy, well, I think the trajectory is saying this, but is he in that discussion of being the best MLS coach of all time?
Oh, man. Uh, I was on Battered Fans with Daniel from the Battered Herons on Tuesday night, and I was getting absolutely cooked in the comments. I think he is, honestly, because I don't know any besides Pat Noonan, who's kind of having a little trip up now with injuries and whatnot. I don't know if any other manager in MLS that, since I've started watching MLS, that has been so consistent in winning and getting points when valuable trophies than Wilfried Nancy has within these last 9, 10 months. I think we're reaching 10 months now. I think he has a certain way of viewing this game that no other coach has, or had, I should say. It's like a prime example, the chess picture of Ronaldo and Messi. They kind of recreated that when Nancy was hired. He was sitting down playing chess by himself during his photo shoot. But the way that he has certain I won't say his nuances in this game, in certain ways that he sees how the game is, different analogies that he compares to, it's so mind-blowing to figure out that, okay, what is he going to do now? He's going to do this, he's going to do this, and then he'll do like the complete opposite, and it'll work. And I'm just like, this is mind-boggling. I've never seen anything like this. I guess you can make a case for Brian Schmetzer in Seattle after was that 16, 17, and 18 that they made back-to-back-to-back finals?
They see, so they've won 2 and they've been to 4. So yeah, 16, 17, 18, and then they lost to the Crew in 2020.
Yeah. You can you can make a case for Brian Schmetzer because going that many finals within 4 or 5 year span, it's pretty dang impressive.
Yeah.
But
No, for sure.
I think just the way that he has these players all on one consistent page, day in and day out, you can't find that anywhere else in MLS. Like I said, except for maybe Cincinnati, because with Supporter Shield last year, good chance of winning Supporter Shield again this year if they can catch Miami. But I don't think any other coach in MLS has this consistent basis and buy-in from his players than Wilfried Nancy.
I I am in the belief of Nazi is the best manager this league has ever seen.
Mhm.
Now, his trophy cabinet isn't as rich as maybe some other coaches, like maybe Bruce Arena. You can make an argument. But one thing about Bruce, who I have a lot of respect for, I think he's the OG GOAT. He's the old head GOAT, right?
Mhm.
He coached when there was 12, 14 teams, 16 teams. The
Yep.
last time he won a championship, there was only, I think, 19 teams in the league. Wilfred won a championship when there was 29 teams in the league, right? And then there's
Mhm.
18 teams that make the playoffs, more than half the league. He prevailed, and he took down a giant, LAFC, where the Galaxy at that in that era were the Giants, right? They
Yeah.
were the team to beat. He slayed the giant. And also, too, when another guy you mentioned is Brian Schmetzer, just because he has 2 MLS Cups. He's the first modern MLS coach to win the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yep.
Now he is I respect Brian Schmetzer for what he's done, but I think Brian Schmetzer is limited. Like I think that what he does, it works to a certain degree in MLS, and he's had a lot of good luck. But Nazi's the coach where people say that guy might not be long for this league. I don't know if Pat Noonan or Brian Schmetzer's anyone's ever regarded them in that way. Like, hey, this guy
Mhm.
could go to Europe and thrive and be a really good manager in maybe a top 5 league. Where Nazi people think he's only scratching the surface, and maybe we haven't even seen the best of what he has, the best to come. They're like the best is still yet to come for him. So I think that if he stays in MLS, which for selfish reasons, I'd like to see him stay in MLS just to see what he could do over a long term. Like if he stays with Columbus for 10 years, right? And I'm
Yeah.
talking about starting last year on the clock, I think he'll probably have 3 or 4 MLS Cups, in my opinion, just because he's that good of a manager, and he'll probably have
Oh,
at
yeah.
least one Champions League, maybe more. What other manager could do that? Hell, some managers don't win a single championship in 10 years. Pat Noonan's a good manager, like you point out. I just think I think he's like good for what the traditional domestic coach is.
Mhm.
Wilfred Nancy's different. Like he has a
Oh, yeah.
different background. So like he's kind of new to the equation, which I think is what makes him unique and why he's so special. I think he's the go. I think he's if he wins MLS Cup this year, I'd say he's the GOAT. That's just my opinion.
I still find it hard to believe, and I can see the argument for any St. Louis fans that are gonna watch this of how close Nancy was to uh, being second place for MLS Manager of the Year last year. Bradley Carnell took St. Louis first year, great job. Pat Noonan, Supporter Shield, Eastern Conference Final, great job. Nancy, I'm baffled at how he came in third place to Bradley Carnell, and I'm just like, this is insane because you everybody was I will say crew fans were kind of on edge about his style of play because he plays three in the back. We're so used to 4-2-3-1. We had it with Greg Berhalter, we had it with Caleb Porter. Everybody's so used to the 4-2-3-1 formation that playing three in the back is very, very risky. However, I think Nancy has set up a good structure, and he did so bringing in Rudy Camacho from Montreal, who Camacho's played under. I think Rudy Camacho has been a very good center back because yeah, Nancy can coach from the side, but obviously can't step onto the field and be on the field with the players. That's why he brought in Camacho, because Camacho's played in the system before. You have players who've never played in the system before. So having Camacho, as one of the other beat writers say, having a miniature Wilfried Nancy on the pitch, being able to direct players and whatnot has been a game changer, because yeah, there's some slip ups. We saw that with NYCFC and Miami, and I think Philadelphia in the Leagues Cup. Mishaps happen in the back. But the one thing with Nazi, and I don't know if you know this, he wants players to make mistakes. He wants them to make mistakes. He wants them to learn, because the only way that they're going to learn is they make mistakes. That's the only way you can learn. And where I'm just like, this guy is like Picasso. I like it.
Revolutionary,
Um,
right? Yes. Yeah,
yeah, but
exactly.
if Columbus were to win MLS Cup this year, yeah, I think he's the greatest manager of all time.
No, I listen, man, I agree. And so I would say that you and I are both on the same page that he's building a dynasty in Columbus. And so this leads to my final question for you. How do you feel about their chances of repeating this year? It's hard to even make it to another MLS Cup in a back-to-back years, like let alone win it, but just making it to the final. And they just won Leagues Cup, which we won't debate of like how people feel about, there's a lot of people on the fence about one way or another with the tournament. But
Yeah,
either way, they won it, right? That you
yeah.
can't take it away from them. They won the tournament. They were the last team standing. How are you feeling about year two, the Columbus Crew's chances of repeating and making it to the MLS Cup final?
I think I want to say my faith in them is high. I believe that they can. Um, as I mentioned before, the couple minor mistakes just need tweaked a little bit, especially in the defensive half. But as I mentioned before, the buy-in from the players is so good. Um, I think the biggest problem that we'll have in the latter portion of this season, and I don't even know if he's gonna come. That's Miami. Obviously, they have Lionel Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba. They also have good players like Benjamin Karmaski, Leo Campana, um, Thomas Aviles. They have great players, and Tata Martino has done so good. Obviously, we know from his time in Atlanta, has done so well with Miami. But I want to say, if they can play, the crew can play like how they did um, last year. Obviously, they, as you said, they haven't missed a beat at all. I do think that we have a great chance of repeating. I think just if we can get over the hump of Miami, possibly Cincinnati, I like our chances of repeating. I hope we get LAFC again if that were the case, so we can
It's a
win
shoe in then, man. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed if it's LAFC.
four four times to three times being major trophies. I I have faith in this team that we can repeat. If not, I don't see it being an unsuccessful year, because we had a successful year. We won a trophy. We have a chance to win another trophy 26 days from now in Campeones Cup against Club America. Um, but this team can definitely go all the way, and I'm so excited because then I might have to travel.
Yeah, hey man, that's always a good time. And I agree with you 100% about Inter Miami. That's the only team that scares me because well, I'm neutral, but I mean like for if I was putting myself in like a Columbus Crew fan shoe
Mhm.
put myself in your shoes, Tata Martino is the only coach in the entire league in my opinion that's even remotely on Nazi's level
Yeah,
tactically as a manager. He's the only one I would even put in that class of tactics. So that's what makes it a little interesting. And like you said, they also have the Barca boys for the sequel, right?
yeah,
So it's kind of a weird situation. But I feel like the Columbus Crew are built different. We're watching history right now. I love watching them play. It's nice to see more than just two clubs be really good. It's nice to see a small market team be arguably the best team in the league. Just makes things interesting and spicy, right? So I think it's going to be a great playoffs. I feel very good about you guys making it to the cup. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens if you guys win the cup. Who's going to be call? Who's going to call? And is Nazi going to pick up? It's going to be a fun remainder of the season, man. I can't wait.
I will say there was one point in time where I kind of did not want us to advance in Leagues Cup because obviously we had a game against Philadelphia this past Wednesday. They got rescheduled from the 24th. So we're back to playing 2 games a week a little bit. Um, but the comeback against Miami in the I think it was the quarterfinals. Um, I was like, "Oh, this team's winning MLS Cup." Uh, down 2-0. I was like, "Okay, we're down and out." They had the same mindset last year in the Eastern Conference Final when we went down to 2-0 to Cincinnati. Okay, yeah, we're down and out. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. And then all of a sudden, it's just a master class, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're winning the cup. That's it. That's all there is to it. We're winning
Hundred
the cup." Um,
100%, man. No, I can't wait, Ty, man. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
yeah.
It's gonna be a good playoffs. We only have less than 2 months, man, until we start the MLS Cup playoffs, and it's gonna be a very exciting ride. I feel like this is the most contenders we've ever had. I put it at like 6 teams. I think that can legitimately win the cup this year.
Mhm.
So I think that that's going to be exciting to see who prevails and wins the MLS Cup. I'm very excited, man. And hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on today. Where can people follow you at? Where can they read your great writings and your great journalistic work? Where can they follow you at?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter or X as it's called now, at Fisher Tyler underscore underscore. And if you guys like reading work, you guys can find my stuff on massivereport.com.
Make sure you check Ty out. He writes great articles. Go to guy for anything crew related. Appreciate having him on, or him coming on and joining us. We'll definitely have him on again if he'd like, especially with the crew looking like they're going to be a serious contender the rest of the season. So I appreciate it, Ty. Until next time, guys. I will see you all soon.